Welcome back to Real Talk for an Unreal World. Today is an extremely special episode. I was very fortunate to have met and learned about a new friend, Kehly Christine. In this episode, you're going to get to learn about the pages of a story in a human's life. And the pages within this story may not be that easy to hear. And I just want to kind of put that out there to people right away. This woman is a warrior spirit. She is an absolute champion in this life to endure the childhood trauma that she endured. She was born into a family with two addicted parents, which led to an immense amount of complications through sexual abuse, physical abuse, and many other very, very difficult things to hear. But she translates this story with such conviction of a human who has transmuted what held her back into her greatest asset. She has grown so much and blossomed into a human who speaks with truth and authenticity about the experiences that were difficult for her in this life, and she shares the education that she found within them. And when you hear that from somebody who has endured such a painful, difficult life, but you hear the beauty within their voice because they've transmuted that, it's definitely something that is an honor for me to share with anybody who hears this episode today. So it is my utmost pleasure to introduce you to Kehly Christine, the warrior spirit of a woman on planet Earth. I hope you enjoy the episode as much as I had having the conversation. Thanks for being here. If you like it, please like, subscribe, talk about it with your friends, however it works for you. Thank you so much. Kehly, I just want to say thank you for being in a place today to be able to talk about what didn't serve you as a child and what has become something that is serving you today. So
Yeah.
let's appreciate you so much for being here and being able to talk about trauma in a very digestible way.
Yeah. No, thanks for having me.
As a child, you witnessed both parents as addicts. You grew up with addicted parents. And this in your life translated to an addiction as well, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah. I became an overachiever and a workaholic. And I not realizing that was a different form of addiction and
And I
avoidance.
and avoidance, exactly. And I think that that's super important right there. Like people understand, like socially acceptable addictions are the exact same pattern of thinking as illegal or unacceptable addictions.
Yeah. Whether it's gambling, drugs, being busy, working, spending money, you know,
Absolutely, spending
anything.
money. Yeah, absolutely. It's just acceptable, so people find it normal. And you were saying, so you became addicted to becoming an athlete.
Yeah. And that looking for that external validation. And ultimately, I believe looking to be loved in all the wrong places, right? Like I had no self-love. Number one, I didn't come from a childhood that was shown to me that was lovable and, nurturing and feeling safe and secure because it was everything but that.
Right.
I was in survival mode and my parents were out of control and we were in and out of foster care and, seeing two parents who were honestly good humans and they at one point were in middle class society and were entrepreneurs. My mom was a welder in, the oil and gas industry. And my dad had a fencing company. He had chain link fencing company. And his form was, I guess, like, he started with alcohol. That was kind of where he started. And it translated into cocaine, crack, heroin, meth, and ultimately living, 15, 20 years on the streets. And he was very like smart guy, had a, sensible, mindful, but he just wasn't running away from his shadows and his childhood trauma. Like he was, abandoned by his dad and kicked out when he was 12 years old and, go fend for yourself. And his mom, I would say, had a lot of trauma as well. So she didn't know how to like handle that. And then my mom, she grew up with a very toxic and abusive family home and was raped and molested and taken advantage of. And I think she just hid that. And um, I believe, in my opinion, I was so young when I lost her, but knowing, what I know now, they were treating her for depression, but I think she had bipolar. And so she would go from like super high, like euphoric, on top of the world, and then like suicidal, like just her energy and her emotions. Like it was just highs and lows. And then she'd go on these like addictions for work. It started with work with her. She was a workaholic. And then she met a guy who was using cocaine, and he was like, "Hey, you want to snort some cocaine?" And she was just doing what she thought she should do with the person she loved. And then that quickly turned to crack to heroin within 5 years. And she ended up passing away from a brain aneurysm ultimately, but it was created from that lifestyle. And so we got taken away when I was in grade 6. And then she died when I was in grade 11. So ultimately, I lost her, when I was 11 years old. And then I lost her again at, 17 years old.
Wow, that's incredible. It's incredible to lose something twice in your life, and I can't help but think of myself, being an addict and like I have 3 children, right? And I was an addict in their lives, and yeah, they lost me as well. Here we're waiting for that second return to come to fruition, but I find a lot of similarities in myself that I see in your parents, and it's interesting. The more I hear about these stories, and I really appreciate you sharing about this, is that the connection between addiction and emotional traumas is just an absolute, right? Like to understand that if we don't have an ability to process, or we don't have the education to process and communicate about our emotions, we are going to reach for things external from us that we do understand, that do have names, that we do know how to use. And that's why these things are readily available around us. Like alcohol is so widely accepted because you can distract from your feelings. You can get absolutely wasted and forget what you were feeling and not learn or teach yourself how to process that. Television does the same thing. So people are falling into these patterns, and then we're judging each other based on what outlet we're using. Oh, they're using heroin and meth. I'm only using television and alcohol. I'm better than you. But
Or
the
food.
or
Food.
food, exactly. Food, sugar, caffeine.
Fucking food.
Like,
Yeah. Like,
pick one. Anything that is having you to distract from a feeling. And I think we would be ignorant to say that we don't know that we're not doing that, because people, like, food's a big one, right? And
we're
there's,
smart.
yeah,
Humans
like,
are intelligent. We know.
but
We
you
know.
practice. People practice, like, distracting from that, from that awareness, that ignorance. They want to be ignorant so they don't have to be accountable. And I see addicts, that like such as your parents and myself, that lives do become unmanageable. Well, at least it's a way to say, hey, like I'm not okay. Like I'm really not okay, because this little thing called society's game, or this little thing that I'm supposed to be a part of that doesn't really work for anyone, it really doesn't work for me, because what happened in my life was a lot for me to carry, and it's really dense. So it's really holding me down. I
Yeah.
and
Yeah, and they don't teach us about, I would say, like break it down to literally self-care and self-love. They teach us how to take care of ourselves somewhat, but they don't teach us about self-love, how to like emotionally regulate. What is your attachment style? What's your love language? What is unconditional love? Like they're not teaching us that in school. Don't you think if we would have, meditation incorporated or breath work into our daily lives as young children, then we'd be able to process and regulate, or we had supportive parents or a supportive community. Like
yeah,
I didn't have any of that. And those people weren't even asking me. They'd be like, "How's your day, Kelly?" And of course, I was so conditioned to say, "Good,
yeah,
fine."
right,
But then, I want to share like with your listeners, Justin, and these are 3 questions that a mentor of mine, many, many, many years later, he was in the administration and a principal at a school, and there was a kid who would come to school every day, and he'd beat the shit out of these kids on the playground, like elementary school, grade 4, and they couldn't understand why this kid was so angry. Well, he brought him into the office, my friend, and he asked him 3 questions, and I'll never forget because I wish I was asked these 3 questions. Is did you eat 3 meals yesterday? And my answer would have been no. So, um, did you sleep in your bed last night by yourself? And then I could have said no. And then did anybody come into your room who shouldn't have been in your room? And it would have been, yeah, somebody came into my room. If one of those teachers or mentors or coaches or parents or somebody in the community could have just seen my little anger outbursts as like a way of like trying to express something's going on underneath and I couldn't find the words. And every time I did tell the truth in the past, my parents would fucking cuff me, backhand me, send me to the corner, but yet they tell you to tell the truth. But
Yeah.
yet, when you tell the truth and it gets them in trouble or holds them accountable or could put them in handcuffs where the cops come, and then whether we get taken away from the cops into social services or my parents get dragged to, prison or, sent to jail, like either way, calling cops didn't feel good because we got taken away or my parents. So it just didn't make sense. It's like, tell the truth, but yet you're going to get fucking smacked. Shut up, sit down, don't speak unless you're spoken to. Like I was raised in the 80s. Like they were still using the belts and the backhand, and grabbing your ear and twisting you, right? So yeah, it was a challenge. So then you learn to just stuff it down because nobody knows how to handle the truth. And then when you do tell the truth, everyone makes it like hush hush.
Yeah. And it's, we're sort of being brought up in a society, and we have been. I mean, you and I are around the same age, where following what everyone else is doing is just what we're all supposed to do. No matter what your story is, you just go with the flow. Everyone's ignoring and not having conversations what's really going on inside. So I mean, when a kid comes to school and he's beating everybody up or she's beating everybody up, like you're not going with the flow, and they try to mold you into that. And when you don't fit that box, that's when things really get out of hand, right? So my little nephew's going through something like that too. He's autistic, goes to a public school. He's getting picked on, getting beat up by these kids. And we had a conversation. I told him, I said the same thing. I said, Monty, you really got to see that people are having and going through things in their life that we don't know. If these kids are coming to school and they're bullying you and they're picking on you, there's somewhere in their family or in their life where love is missing. They don't understand love. You know what he said to me? He's like, well, that's funny, Uncle, because the boy's sister was just taken away from him. And I said, okay, now you can see the boy for more than the bully. Now you know that he's pure love, this child, autistic child. He just gets it. So he was able to go back to school with that understanding. So
Yeah.
self-love and self-care, like you say, it's an absolute, but the education system is just an indoctrination to have us all become a part of this system. I mean, I say all the time, they make employees, and they don't make good employees because a lot of people are stressed out and they're afraid of the choice that they're going to make to do something that they don't know what they want to do for the rest of their life.
Yeah. And I was going to add, I forgot to mention what was happening to the little boy at home. His dad was raping him every night, and he would come home, and that was his form of expression, that rage and that sadness and, the trauma. And because my mentor asked those three questions, he was able to get to the bottom of it and learn how to support him better because no kid's going to come and tell you what their parents doing to them because they don't want their parent to be taken away, even if it's, you know, bad things that are happening to them. Nobody wants their parent to be taken away.
Yeah. No matter the situation. I mean, those are the people
Yeah.
that we've been taught that they're the ones that brought us into the world, that's our whole world. We look up to these people no matter the situation. Your parents were drug
And we
addicts.
think it's love because that's all we've known. We
Exactly.
literally think it's love,
And if our
truly.
parents have never been taught how to love themselves, then we can't blame them for not loving us or showing us a dysfunctional idea of love because that's all they know. And I mean, that was big on my journey too. Like, I come from a good home. Like, my parents are freaking amazing, but nobody taught them love. So they didn't understand how to teach me love. They bought me everything, lots of materialism. But still, I ended up trying drugs myself, and because I couldn't communicate about how I was feeling, and in our family, no one knew how to do that, so it was really kind of shied away from, I turned to the drugs myself, and I found the same thing that your parents were looking for was that distraction from those feelings and those experiences that I didn't know how to put into words. But I did know how to, put a needle into my arm, and I did know how to drift away inside of that. So that's why that became acceptable for me, judged by everyone for sure for what I was doing and not for who I was and what I was feeling. And I think that's interesting right there. As I say that, I'm like, yeah, I was always judged for the external application of myself. No one ever saw me on the inside and questioned, like, what's going on, you know?
Well, and just because you didn't have a visible wound or a limb missing or a fucking limb growing out of your neck doesn't mean you don't have these internal wounds that are oozing so deeply within that no one could even understand, even as far as like a PTSD, like a brain injury, like that alone, concussions alone, like just because you can't see it. I had ear infections my whole life, almost died twice, and I wear a bone anchored hearing aid now on the back of my head, and my ears were bloody and pussy, and it smelled like a fucking pig farm. And the doctors were telling me, "Oh, here's some antibiotics and eardrops." It's true. It was rank. So that's like the best expression because it was literally rotting, like pus gross. Like it was a cyst in my middle ear, and they kept feeding it with these wet antibiotics, which clearly is going to keep a disease alive. Moisture with moisture makes zero sense. And what I actually discovered, Justin, through plant medicine, like my whole life, no medical doctor could fix these ear infections. And they said, "Oh, we should have just put tubes in your ears as a little girl so your ears drain." But I believe now, with everything I've learned all these years, is like our emotional body shows up in our physical body. So mine was expressing as an ear infection. Well, I went and did plant medicine in 2015 because I almost died in 2012. Like one more day, I would have been dead because it ate a hole, 2 inches into my skull. I had spinal fluid from my brain leaking into my ear canal, and the disease was like literally about to eat into my brain. So
Wow.
I was kissing, hopefully heaven's gates there. But anyways, I was willing to do anything and everything. And my friend said, "Hey, come do ayahuasca." And I flew down to the US and went to Flagstaff, Arizona with a shaman. And he hosted a ceremony there, and I really wanted to heal my ears. And then obviously my trauma from my childhood, but my main mission was my ears and to get the messages that I needed. And it showed me as the little girl, literally praying on my knees with my hands together. I don't want to hear my parents fight anymore. Well, guess what happened? I got ear
Sorry,
infections.
it showed you that when you were inside of the plant medicine, inside of the drug?
Yes. So it was all visualization. It showed me back to that little girl self, like when I was a little girl and my parents were fighting, and I was in my bedroom and I didn't want to hear my parents fight anymore. So I had prayed as a little girl and I said, "I don't want to hear my parents fight. Like, God, please help me not hear my parents fight." Well, I got ear infections to stop hearing, stop listening. And then this manifested into chronic ear infections, into a disease. No medical doctor, no ears, nose, and throats doctor, like specialists. They're just like, prescriptions upon
Yeah.
prescriptions upon prescriptions. Like they don't actually fix the problem. They're putting a band-aid over a bruise. They're just trying to fix a symptom. And it almost killed me. And ever since I went back in and I visualized myself now and I rewrote that soul contract, just again, visualizing and just said I have great hearing and there's no more damage, I'm safe to hear, I only hear love, and I'm here to show about love, that self-love. And I haven't had an ear infection since, and it literally was in my life since I was like 3 years old until I was 20, well, 2012, yeah, like I would have been like 27, so like majority of my life. And it got so bad, it actually did take my hearing. So I have severe to moderate hearing loss in one ear and severe in the other. So I am quite deaf without my bone anchored hearing aid. Um, but ultimately it's a gift because I was able to lip read when I didn't have this bone anchored hearing aid. And I read people's body language and energy. So a lot of times I couldn't hear what people were saying, but I could sense. So then I created this other sense beyond our five senses of like dialing into my intuition and reading energy and reading environment. So it became this beautiful gift when I, worked through the trauma side of things.
So how much of the plant medicine alleviated you? Like, so you saw yourself on your knees as a little girl praying to God. I mean, geez, like that just connected so many things for me in your own story. when you're talking about that, like it took you back to that place and how God alleviated you from that, or this God source, this prime creator, whatever we want to call it,
Yeah.
alleviated you from that by allowing you not to hear it anymore, but also allowing you to self-heal with the realization of the ability to want to overcome that trauma. So I think it's important. People are carrying trauma. A lot of what I talk about is trauma, and people are looking for outlets. The thing that I speak to is using love, and I kind of try and help people understand how to do that and see that in small doses. But
Mm.
for people that are carrying an immense amount of trauma, that are looking how to alleviate that, yeah, the ayahuasca plant is definitely a magical thing that's been brought to this planet to help people. I'm so grateful that you talked about that, because people hear your story. I mean, there's a lot of trauma involved in your story, absolutely, like growing up with two addicted parents to that degree and not having anyone to communicate, but also not having an ability to love yourself and then alleviating yourself from that. That's incredible. How much work came to your life in the continuation of your practice of self-love and self-care after the plant medicine? Like, what did the plant medicine do? Did it show you a path, or like did it like, and what I mean by that is like, did it allow you to get on the path of love for self through that, or like what was the activation?
Yeah, and that's a great question. So I started my, I would say, like, awakening or soul journey, or this kind of like asking deeper questions of like why, and thinking more in the gray areas, like, why do I do what I do? Why do I react? Why am I attracting certain romantic relationships in my life? Like, people are mirroring to me different things. So I started just asking why and getting curious. And that led me to Reiki. And then I ended up doing my Reiki level 1, my level 2, and then I became a master. So it started with Reiki. And that started in 2008. So quite a few years before I did plant medicine. And then I got into psychic mediumship, and then Akashic record readings and astrology. So there was a long path. Like, I wasn't ready for plant medicine right away. And because I had come from a childhood of addiction, I avoided any hallucinogenics, any hard drugs. I mean, I smoked weed and did mushrooms, but I didn't like thinking about, like, giving away my power and being out of control and seeing things that weren't really there. Like, I really wasn't, I was type A and OCD, needed control, right? Never let go of, let go of control. So it took me a lot of courage, but because I believed my best friend and she had done an experience with this shaman already, I felt wholeheartedly, I could trust her. Obviously her word, and because she had been. So yeah, it started in 2008, and then by 2012 I was ready for that plant medicine, and I've done like, I've sat with ayahuasca 4 times now. So the
Incredible.
first experience, we did it in an area. Do you mind if I just go through kind of like the main points of what I got from each
I,
sitting?
I would love that. I want
Okay.
really people to understand this connection to this medicine. I've watched a lot of testimonies on this, so please, I would love this.
Yes, yes. And I will say, for the listeners, it's taken me many years to still integrate some of this stuff. So there's a lot of it. So in my opinion, this is my experience from my own journey, because everyone's experience is different and very different. And my belief is the medicine will give you what you're ready for. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's only going to give you what's going to serve you right now. And there might be some extra tidbits, but it may be integrated in a year from now or 10 years from now. So it starts like a puzzle piece. We kind of start connecting the dots. So for me, my first experience, because I struggled with hearing my whole life, I'm in this meadow. And so think about a meadow as an energy, and think about feminine and masculine. So the first day we're around, like, a meadow, peaceful. There's, like, like fox in, the distance, and there's some red rock and like tall grass. And, we're spread out. You were outside. It's during the day. And you go up and you take your shot. Obviously, you set your intention and all of that. And first of all, it's disgusting. Let's just put that out there. It's so gross. You want to, like, spit it out. And then all of a sudden you start having a little bit of like, oh shit, what's going to happen? Like, cause you're like, it's going to happen now. So you go back to kind of your area. Everyone's spread out, has their own space. And, you go internal. So you close your eyes. The journey's inside. You close your eyes. It's never anything outside of you. And when you open your eyes, you're tripping out because, you're seeing things, things are moving, and everyone's on their own experience. So your eyes are closed. Typically, that's, what the shaman encourages. And my shaman said, preferably if you could sit up without leaning against anything or laying down, because you'll be connected, to source, like the ground and source, and straight spine, preferably, and eyes closed. So I'm doing that. And then you go on this journey, and time's an illusion at this point. Time doesn't exist. So I believe it's maybe 2 hours later. It felt like a long journey. And like when your eyes are closed, it's like this, it shows up as, so we live on a 3D plane. I'm going to kind of help the listeners understand a little bit. So on the earth plane, they say we live on a 3D plane. So it's polarity, light and dark. So there's 4D, 5D, 6D, 7D. They say up to 12D. So when you're doing plant medicine, you can tap into these other dimensions and these other frequencies, these other, vibrations. And so for me, it was like dark. It was like you were going through like a dark tunnel, and it was like shadows, and then it was like grid work coming at you and like codes, and then all of a sudden you'd get this female voice talking to you. And then maybe you would get like sensations in your body, like these extreme pains, or like, this twitching, or like you forget how to like put your fucking sweater on. Like it humbles you really quickly. And one moment you think you're cold, so then you're putting a sweater on, and then the next minute you're too hot. So it's kind of like, working on your ego a little bit, like figuring out how, like for me, this was my experience. I'm like, okay. And for me, doing it the first time, you don't really know what to expect. So you're going on this journey, figuring it out. Well, then he rings this bell. So he has his little bell, like he's like ding. Well, I'm alert first person because I'm intuitive. So I sense it. Because at this point I don't even have a hearing aid, right? It's just and then I look around, and everybody's kind of like deep into their journey still. Like, and I'm like, did I hear something? So I doubted it. And I've always doubted myself my whole life. Like, oh, did I hear that right? Or like, am I, the crazy one? So anyways, I look up, I look around, and I'm like, okay, well, everyone's, they're not alert. So then I close my eyes again. Well, all of a sudden I go on this journey again, and they're not supposed to touch you or bother you. Like if you're still on your journey, you just don't go back up for the second cup. Well, so I doubted it. I was like, hey, close your eyes, because you've been, told like the best is to close your eyes. Well, I guess this hummingbird's hovering over me, and like the shaman's like breaking sticks around me. Like they could not get my attention, but yet that little ding, like I got that frequency. It was a different frequency, right? But they said the whole time this hummingbird's just, and I'm like, interesting. So then all of a sudden, me realizing after we kind of come to afterwards at the end, and I realized, oh, I missed the second cup. So I thought I missed out, right? Missed out. So this is where the fucking, it humbles you quickly. Let's just put it that way. So I thought I missed out, right? But again, the medicine gave me what I needed. Let's be clear. I got what I needed. That hummingbird was there for a reason. I needed to doubt myself for a reason, to literally get in alignment and stop doubting myself. So on the walk back to the campsite, I start hyperventilating, like, so like the plant medicine's still working. And I'm just like, I'm not crying. I'm not really that upset, but all of a sudden this deep emotion needs to be released. And the shaman worked me through it. And, I was able to kind of like reground myself. So that was kind of my first experience, is like, stop doubting yourself. And if it's coming from a space of love, you're always going to hear it. And if you don't hear it, you're going to sense it. So that was kind of my message there, is like, stop doubting that. And then like, I'm here to hear love, because if you love me, you know that I'm hard of hearing. And if you love me, you're going to be like, hey, Kehly, like get my attention first, So I understood like I need to speak my truth and say, hey, I'm hearing impaired. I'm not trying to be rude. Like, could you speak up or like come closer? Right. So that was a lesson for that day. And then the second day we went by a mountain. So that's masculine energy. So this day I got to see my mom
Sorry,
Oh,
the meadow was feminine energy?
yeah, feminine. Yeah.
And who's just for listeners, who's defining this?
I believe
The energetic
just
space?
exactly. So the energy of the area
Right.
and then like think about like mountains as like more masculine. Like there's like weather coming through and like it could be
Even the symbol for the mountain, the symbol for female is chalice, right? So if the
yeah.
symbolism represents, that's I
Yeah.
was just kind of wanting
Well, and
to.
I totally I don't want to like say I know because I don't know, but I was told we were doing a ceremony in a feminine area, which was kind of the meadow and peaceful and calm and serene and just like you could just feel like it
Yeah.
felt feminine as well. So for me, it felt that way. And then when we went to the mountain next day, it was a totally different experience because it was feeding off like the storm in the distance and it was like thundering and lightning, but yet we weren't getting wet, but yet we were tapping into that energy because when you're on ayahuasca, you are one. Like you're the plants, you're the insects moving, you're the shaman, you're the friend that you're judging over there that maybe, digging in the dirt or dancing naked because we're so judgmental too. Like we're like, oh, well, their experience is different, or oh, I didn't get that. Like we're always looking for something like, whether you have curly hair, you want straight hair, whether you're overweight, you want to be underweight. Like, it's just like you're never happy. And it just really showed the polarities. So the second journey was I went internal and there was this internal voice. It was an audio journey for me this time. And it was like, follow my voice, follow the light, follow my voice, follow the light, follow my voice, follow the light, and got louder and brighter and louder and brighter. And it took me, again, this is all visualization, eyes are closed. It took me, and as it's like thundering and lightning and roaring in the background, like it really like felt like you're walking up the stairs to heaven, right? It was like so insane to me. And I got to see my mom at the Heaven's Gate. It was like a golden gate. She was like, looked like an angel. Her skin was glowing. She had beautiful teeth. And like, no, my mom had rotting teeth. She had not great skin. She was an addict for 5 years. And by the end, she was injecting into her neck and it was just sores and everything everywhere. And, she had hep C from sharing needles, like all of it. Like her whole system was shutting down. She had gray eyes and when she was healthy, she had like teal eyes. So like eye color changes, skin changes, the complexion changes, everything, right? Like what's happening on the inside is a reflection of what's happening on the outside. So as I saw her, she had beautiful teeth, like the most pearly teeth and this beautiful glowing skin. And she just said how proud she was of me and how I'm the chosen one to like heal the trauma. And she understands it's hard. And she could have found the courage and just apologized literally like for everything that she fucked up. So that was, super special. And she really just showed me like my journey is to teach people about self-love because she couldn't do that. And it's taken me a long time to get there. And I've done all this healing for myself and now the last 5 years I've been sharing it with my clients because they used to only come to me for training and nutrition, and I've always had these spiritual gifts and these tools, but I never shared it because I didn't want to be shunned from my community or judged or people to think that I'm a witch or like I work with dark energy. And I'm like, I only invite like angelic energy and for the highest good of all. Like I don't dabble in the dark, the dark stuff. And it's out there. I'm not naive to that, but I don't invite that in. And I have boundaries and practices and rituals in place. But honestly, Justin, it's saved my life. And so that was my second journey at that time. And then I brought the shaman to Canada and I hosted my own ceremony and I asked people in my community who would be open to do an ayahuasca ceremony. And then this time we hosted up in the northern Canadian Rockies in BC.
Nice.
Um, my family's from Toad River, and my aunt was so kind and gracious to allow us to host a ceremony on her land. And you're right in the mountains, like some powerful energy. So the first day, um, we did it in like the bush by a waterfall.
Okay.
And that was insane. And that's where I got the message for my ear and how to heal it. So that was that day. So that was my third sitting with it. And then the fourth sitting, it literally went through my whole body and like dusted like my brain and my organs and all my scars and any, like imperfections that I thought. Like it just cleaned house, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it really, so I had a lot of in our brain when we have a lot of trauma growing up, you have your brain PTSD, and I had a lot of complex PTSD. I mean, I've experienced, I mean, maybe I'll go into this because then people can understand what a childhood, when you're born, into a family who has addiction, and let's say drugs and alcohol specifically. My parents were leaving me with people they should have never left me with. So at 3 years old, I was molested by my babysitter's friend um, when I was 3 years old. So I had fell asleep on the couch, and my siblings were upstairs going to be put to bed by my babysitter. And his friend was downstairs, and I woke up to him like going through my vagina with his fingers in a Q-tip, and obviously was so traumatized. I was 3 years old. Could remember how that made me feel, like what t-shirt I was wearing. And then my parents came home, they called the cops, nothing happened. And then my mom and dad split up when I was 4, so the year later. And then at 6 years old, my mom was welding at that point, or going to school at that point for welding. And my uncle was babysitting us and like off and on through that year. And I was 6 years old and he was like 17 and maybe 18. And he made me give him like oral pleasure twice when, again, all my siblings were sleeping. He was like, he knew what was right and wrong. And I never told my mom because she would have killed him, like for sure. And I never told my dad because he was like psychopath. And again, I wasn't close with my dad. And then when I got taken away from my mom in grade 6 because she had been doing drugs, and at that point she was smoking crack when we got taken away. And I thought moving into my best friend's house, because if I moved with my grandma, my uncle was there, so I didn't want to do that. And then I had already been in and out of foster care, and I was, since I was young, because my parents were unstable and my mom was suicidal at times. So I thought moving in with my best friend would be a great choice. And during that time, I lived with them for like 2 years, and her dad was love bombing me and grooming me. And from 12 to 14 years old, he raped me 2 to 3 times a week for 18 months straight. And I didn't know how to tell anyone. I didn't want, because if I would have fought him, he probably would have killed me and then potentially killed his wife and his kids because he would have never wanted to get caught. But I just froze. Like I couldn't, when you're in those like sleeps where you can't move or scream or talk or fight for yourself, like that's how it was. And the only thing that was showing up was I was literally like gagging, like my body was like, and that was still not good enough information for him to like get the fuck off me and like get away from me. And he would come into my room in between 2 and 3:30 when everyone was in their deep sleep, and his wife would be down the hallway, my best friend next door, her brother downstairs. And then he would do this 2 to 3 times, like every week, if not more, if he could get away with it. And I thought, okay, I'll start sleeping with my best friend. He won't do it to me anymore. He would do it right next to her. So I couldn't get away from him. And then I was afraid for my life. And then I was afraid he was going to hurt other people. And then because I was afraid to tell anyone, and then I knew if his wife knew and his daughter and his son, like that would devastate them. Like, no one wants to know their dad's a rapist, a serial rapist. So for 21 years, Justin and I kept this a secret to keep the peace. And that is truly where, like I moved out grade 9 because my uncle had already moved out. My sister moved away from my grandma. So there was just, you know, myself and my other sister. But yeah, so for 18 months, this man raped me. And because I didn't report it or tell anyone, the criminal system has no evidence. So I wasn't able to press charges. And I just reported that 2 years ago to the police.
Can I ask you, the fear that was built up around the speaking your truth to what was going on in the moment? There seemed so many different avenues of fear were just spoken there, and I'm sure, going through your mind all at that time. Were these just hypotheticals and assumptions that you were creating, or was there a message of fear instilled in you that I will kill everyone in this room, I will kill you? Like, how? Talk to me about the fear. Where did
Yeah,
it?
so he was very abusive towards everyone physically. So he'd beat the shit out of his wife. He'd throw his son down the stairs.
Oh,
Very verbally, mentally, emotionally abusive. He was sexually abusing me. So of course, as a 12-year-old little girl who came from an environment of complete trauma and being in survival mode her whole life, I didn't know any different really. I mean, I wasn't being raped in my like I was always being sexually assaulted in my home. So they say the wrong place at the wrong time. I think that's bullshit because
right.
these were happening in my fucking home, in my fucking bedroom, on my fucking couch.
Yeah.
Like these men were coming into my home or my bedroom, and that is not okay. And it's people it's your uncles, your fucking best friend's friend. And everyone thinks it's like these strangers coming out of nowhere. And typically 80% of the time, it's somebody you know. And it happens to men too, because I hear more and more stories, men being assaulted by women or men harming men. So I think it's a fucking pandemic in itself.
One in three. It's actually one in three. I looked into the statistics because a lot of the trauma, like when I talk about emotional traumas, one of the main ones is physical and sexual abuse. There's many, many other ones, but those are the two core ones that we're not talking about. We know that they're happening, but one in three is being sexually or physically abused. I mean, that number is atrocious, but the reason I asked you about the fear was to try and maybe help someone else in that moment who is, I just put myself in that moment in itself. It's like, of course you're terrified. It's no different than not having the education to communicate to ourselves self-love and self-care. We don't have the language. We don't have the information. We don't have the tools. Yes, all we have to do is speak our truth, but look at the society we live in right now. How many people do not practice speaking their truth on a day-to-day basis, and it doesn't surround physical or sexual abuse? So, I mean, to try and speak your truth surrounding that, what advice would you give to a child that is experiencing and facing this situation? I mean, because the reason I ask is those experiences happen to you, we can't change it. So it happened to you. All we can do is try and find the positive. And to me, the positive is the education to share that with another human being. So, what do you
Yeah,
got for a
I
kid?
think what I will add is another reason I also didn't say anything because my whole world just got blown up. I just got literally ripped away from my family. My mom got taken away. We got taken away. So I didn't want to break up another family by the result of another parent fucking it up. So I didn't want to hurt my best friend. I didn't want to hurt her brother, her mom. So then I became like, oh, I'll just hold this in myself. Oh, I can shoulder this. And then I just carried these fucking boulders for my whole life. And it wasn't even mine to carry. And what I will say is I became this numb. So this is how it showed up in my life. So because I was an athlete, I became this physical force. Like I was so jacked, so ripped, had so much anger built up inside me, and I didn't know how to express it in a positive way. So luckily I took it to the court and worked hard and worked it hard in the gym. But because all these men literally destroyed my soul mentally, emotionally, physically, I became so like strong. So if any man were to try to ever take advantage of me, I could at least defend myself. And if anybody harmed my friends or my family, like they're gonna get fucked up. Like I annihilated people. Like I got in fights because my friend was getting beat up, and I would literally like bust teeth, break jaws, like because it was coming out in some way. I was being harmed at home, but yet I was causing harm externally, like that kid beating the shit out of those kids on the playground. I was beating the shit out of, yeah, like my friend got punched out and it was somebody else's fight, should have never even been, involved. But because I seen them hurting someone I loved, and I wish I had someone defending me or sticking up for me or using their voice, I became like the guardian protector of all my family and friends.
It was
And
also a perfect outlet for you to be able to take all that stored energy, that unprocessed emotion, and put it somewhere. I mean,
oh,
wasn't the greatest
and
outlet.
I created harm, and I mean,
Yeah,
I will be for the like, this is a public service announcement apology. I am sorry if you were the receiving end of my fucking fist because of my bullshit trauma. And I've done a lot of work. So I do owe a few people an apology. They didn't deserve to get their face punched in at all. And I was just hurting so bad internally. And I never wanted to cause harm on anyone else, but that just showed you how much pain I was in. I was willing to black out and, punch somebody in the head 100 times within, 3 minutes because I was an athlete. I was like, boom, 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 boom. Like it was so quick and I was so powerful and explosive. Like I would destroy men and women, like literally like annihilate, which I'm not proud of. But again, I did that because I needed to survive at one point in my life.
yeah, yeah. It was a survival tool. Yeah, no, no, I can totally appreciate that. A lot of other people would just judge the action, right, rather than try to understand the root core issue. And I think that that's one of the most important things, that we've got to stop judging the book by the cover. Like, you've got to read some of the pages. You've got to be willing to be patient to get the story from a human being. And if you see a human being that is not going with the flow of society, obviously we can take a step back and go, okay, wow, like there's something going on here. And rather than be judgmental from that perspective, we can actually be introspective. And I think that's a
Yeah,
far
and
more
and
powerful tool.
knowing different attachment styles. So mine was a form of avoidance, and then it showed up as anger outbursts. So I would avoid, 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 isolate, be depressed, retreat, um, didn't trust anybody, like hypervigilant. Other people are anxious, so they just kind of like, turn in and bottle it in. I still expressed it, but I just didn't face it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
So just
absolutely.
knowing, like, as teachers or social workers or counselors or parents or just people in the community, if you see someone like that's acting out of context in that certain environment, there's usually something underlying. It's not like when we're driving to work, someone cuts you off and then you literally have road rage where you ram into the back of the vehicle. It's like something led to that much anger outburst. It's just showing us where we're not free yet.
Yeah.
When we get triggered and then give our power away, it's just showing you where you still have work to do. And what I would, encourage people to recognize is like, don't listen to the words. Look at their body language. What's their body showing you? So if their words aren't aligning with their body language, then maybe just ask a few more deeper questions or ask some more clarity. Like, please help me understand.
Yeah.
And ask them maybe how they're feeling. Like, how are you feeling today? And help them understand, oh, okay, you're feeling angry. Well, anger is allowed to be expressed. How would you like to express that anger? Like just allowing them to be vocal and helping them find, I would say, the language to be able to share how they're feeling. But
Ab-
then also giving them the tools, like teaching them the tools so they know how to regulate. They can process and not feel like we need to go to our room or go to the corner or go figure it out. Because guess what? We're not meant to go do it on your own. You're supposed to co-regulate and connect and stop isolating people. We've been isolated our whole lives. Like we're not meant to do this on our own.
Well, and that brings up a great point. I was just having a conversation with an individual surrounding parenting, and he told me they went away on vacation and he only had two outbursts. The child spoke back to him once, which he made her go to the room, and I said, "Really? You made her go to the room?" I said, "Well, what's that going to teach her?" And he said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, the reason you got frustrated with her talking back to you was your inability to regulate your emotions. So because you could not do that, you isolated the child without even listening or asking for communication to understand where the child learned how to talk back and why the child talked back. Like what's going on in the child's life that it couldn't express its feelings and emotions for you to be able to communicate about it rather than disconnect and isolate both of you, and then teaching the child that that is an acceptable manner of an inability to communicate."
Well, and guess what? She's going to accept that from her romantic partner in the future. So you be careful, daddies and mummies out there. How you treat your children, you're showing them how they're meant to be treated in the future. And I would encourage, I mean, I come from a shit ton of trauma. So this is me learning and doing better and knowing better. And I have stepchildren. I don't have my own biological kids, but I've been around my kids my whole life, and I've trained many, 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 many kids over the years. So I would encourage you to sit with them. And you don't have to agree with them, but you do need to hear them, see them, and hold them. Because ultimately, that's all we all need is to be held, seen, and heard.
Yeah, and I think it's important that if you don't align with the things that your children are speaking, you need to understand that the parameters that they're being brought up in these days is far different from the parameters that we were brought up in our day. So their psychological patterns through these algorithms, through social media, through this video game addiction and inability to connect with self is far greater than it was for us who were still in living in that time when connection was still happening, riding around on bikes at night or whatever it may be. Today it's really done through these social media platforms. So kids more than ever need communication in a home with people they trust. And if you don't have the ability to speak the language or have the tools and education how to do that, it's okay. It's totally okay to not have those tools, but it's not okay to not try. You
Well, and
have
there's
to try.
counselors and therapists and life coaches that can help navigate that and support you as a family. So in my opinion, it's really an excuse at this point. We're much more aware of mental health and how, these addictions and this form of avoidance and trauma can really lead to, a future that's unrewarding and it's not fun for anyone, whether it's a parent in addiction or a child in addiction or your aunt or, seeing somebody on the street. And what I wanted to add about the alcohol. So these alcohol establishment, tobacco, marijuana, shopping, like it's all the government controlled. And guess what? They make money, pharmaceutical world. If we weren't sick, they'd be bankrupt. They're going to keep us sick. Let's fucking be clear. Like they're not teaching us ways to heal ourselves. They're not telling you about the plant medicine. And if they did, we wouldn't need them. So no pill, lotion, or potion is going to fix you.
Yeah, and I think it's important how you speak, how Kelly speaks is like with this education surrounding and understanding to process and identify our emotions and move through them is the new earth. And what I want to talk about is that is absolutely going to take place on this planet without a doubt. And the new earth is centralized around, from my understanding, three principles. And those principles are equality, education, and sustainability. And equality just means that we see each other's for the light beings on the inside. The external vessel is recognized for just that. It's just the vessel that holds the light. Education comes through the avenue that Kelly was talking about. Processing and understanding and identifying our emotions and seeing how they're there as a form of education. They're there to teach us about ourselves and about the people around us. So we're going to learn not how to be employees, but learn how to tap into the tools that we have within. Because the human, this vessel right here with the 12 helixes, the 12 chakras, is the most powerful tool of technology on the planet. We just don't know how to use it yet, but that is coming. And sustainability is just that, an interaction back with planet Earth where we are able to exchange energy and the vibrational frequency and live and coexist together. And that is absolutely going to happen. So these conversations that we are talking about today, bringing Kelly on and talking about trauma is a way for you to overcome your fear, because that of which holds you back is fear. It's an unknowing of how to process the experiences that we faced in this life that is very difficult. So this is a language. This is a conversation surrounding a language, ultimately talking about love. But love is personal for all of us as we've all experienced different things along our lives, on our timeline. Something I want to talk about with vibrational frequencies is your mother keeps surfacing in my mind because I can see her face. And when you spoke about that, it was very beautiful. I almost freaking, you had me, man, because I could see her.
I
Yeah.
know, and it's because it came through as a visual,
Oh
right? So for
man,
me, it's just very much alive in me. Yeah.
you gave that to me. I
I
saw
love
it when
that.
you were talking. When you were talking, man, I saw it, and I saw it because I'm vibrating right now because I could feel her. Because I know what it's like to look like that. When you were describing your mother, I was like, "Oh, I did not always look like this." It was 4 years for me, and every day is a lesson, and I have a practice, and I'm disciplined, and I make mistakes, but I grow every day. But what she saw was the light, was a high vibrational frequency, because that is what happens when we transmute. Energy just transmutes. It does not die. There's no such thing as death. So please do not be confused and do not be afraid of death. If you are not living, you are dying on this planet. And that is an absolute fact. And the way to live is with love and truth. But when you live with light, you know, love is truth. Truth is light. That is the remedy. That is the antidote. It is free. It's within you. You just have to know how to use the medication, because that's the prescription. But when you use it, this happens. You don't need anti-aging creams. You don't need lip injections. You don't need brands. You don't need materialism. You don't need people to define your self-worth and value, because that is found within, with truth, love, and light. And that's a very real thing. And that's a high vibrational frequency that I'm going to associate like this. You've had those days, those magical days where you felt like you were on top of the world, that you were just, everything was right because you were feeling at such a high rate of frequency. And then you've had those days where you're really sad and you're really low, and that's vibrational frequency. That's dense energy. That's emotions that have not been processed. When we feel high, we're in the moment and we've processed everything and we're enjoying what we're feeling. When we're low, we're trying to distract from that feeling because we're confused as how to connect to it. That's a low vibrational frequency and a high vibrational frequency. That's the only thing human beings are. We're not black, we're not white, we're not Chinese, we're not Japanese, we're not Mexican. We're low vibrational and high vibrational. And the whole deal here on this planet is to connect, to become the high vibrational frequency, to evolve into that consciousness that Kehly was talking about before, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12D.
Yeah, and you're so right about it's all within. All your answers are within. Everything you need is from within. Your body can heal itself. I'm not saying you're not going to need guides and support and teachers and mentors and maybe supplementation along the way, through food and through sunlight and through, you know, plants like you have in your background, hanging out with, people who are positive and have unconditional love, getting rid of toxins in your home, the way you talk to yourself. Those are all little tools that you can, put into your daily life that are completely free.
And it,
And going back
sorry,
to your breath.
sorry, I just want to inject right there real quick and just say, look, if all of those things that Kehly are saying, because I know you just went through all those, and what's very common to me is people say, I don't even know where to begin. I don't even know how to get into that space. Then remove the acceptable distractions from your life. The television, delete your social medias. It's got to go. Like when you talk
They're all
about
distractions. It's all a
exactly.
form of avoidance.
Like Kehly didn't achieve what she achieved by allowing herself to make excuse after excuse after excuse to not grow. Like you're the only person that's holding you back. So don't think that anyone's going to do that. Just you will do that. So you've got to become this vessel that's willing to learn beyond the boundaries that you are creating.
Well, and that's what we started with. I was at that crossroads. I could take the path that my parents took, which was unsatisfactory and unrewarding, or I could take the path that I didn't know, that I didn't understand, but it was a new way, and it was going to be rewarding and fulfilling, and a way out of that lifestyle, that, hometown, that darkness. And guess what? The fucking darkness comes with you.
It's a part of it. It's absolutely a part of it.
So I tried to outrun it, outsmart it, outwork it, out mental it, out fucking train it. You bet. But it did catch up to me. And what goes up comes down. So
Well, and I think, I was in a 23-year drug addiction myself, 16 years with the needle. I had Hep C. I know your mother and father's journey very, very well. It was very difficult for me as well. But, I surrendered my life to love, and I learned and I became a student of love. And that was the thing that allowed me to see my darkness as the catalyst that brought me to the light. Like your mother was saying, I'm sorry that I was such a coward, or I don't know if she said coward, but that she wasn't, what did she say?
she wasn't there to support me in the way
No,
that
no, no. To not be able to overcome the trauma.
yes,
Did she say
exactly.
she was too afraid?
Too afraid and
Right.
didn't have the tools, right?
So
She's gonna have to
yeah,
come back another lifetime.
yeah, exactly. And she will too. But it was through that, like I saw everything that I had done throughout my journey, and I thought, okay, like that, I'm not that anymore. Just I just made that choice. Like that was simply it. I made a choice to be a student of love and really recognizes my darkness as being the thing that brought me to that place to appreciate the love because I can't run from it. I can't hide from it. And I certainly talk about it in the way that it's a part of me. It doesn't define me, but it certainly is a part of me. And it's a really wonderful part of me. Even though it was crazy, filled with a bunch of traumatic experiences, it's here. It allows me to appreciate the light. So I see my darkness and the light as being symbiotic, which is why the yin yang is displayed in the fashion that it's displayed, because you need the light within the darkness, right?
Well, without one, you don't know the other. So we need the light
Exactly.
and the dark to recognize that we want light. Because in order to, come from the darkness, you got to know what the light is. So if we didn't have that polarity, we wouldn't know the difference, right?
Absolutely. And people are just stuck in the one ideology. Same as doing something they don't want to do for the rest of their life. This thing called jobs, which we all have to do. If you know what you love, then the world opens up because it's like you're going to get to do what you love and they give you money for it. So it's one and the same. If you just know one compartmentalized idea of how life is going to be, you're going to ride that right to the end. But if you open up your perspective and awareness to open and allow yourself touch with yourself on the inside, the world is going to be heaven as it is, and it's very
Heaven
beautiful.
on earth.
Yeah, because I lived in hell at one time, and I think it's really important to talk about that. Like, Kelly lived in hell as well. She's not
Hell
living
on
there
earth and
today.
heaven on earth. It's a choice. Again,
Yeah,
imagine that.
exactly. I just want to say, man, I appreciate you so much for this. Like,
Absolutely. No, I'm so glad I could get on here today. And
it was very
I'm
cool.
in a space where I can share not from my wounding, but from my wisdom. And it's taken a lot of work to get here. And, you know, I wouldn't say I would change anything because I would be a different person. And I believe I chose this blueprint and I chose my parents and I chose this path. The human side of me, I sit and have pity parties a lot, but I give myself 3 to 5 minutes and I feel it, process it, reach out to a therapist or a friend or a mentor. And I'm not saying it's all rainbows and butterflies because I have days, where I feel deep, dark depression and I have rage and anger and like I want to go for an eye for an eye. But guess what? That I believe, in my opinion, love always wins. And if I can have love in my heart, and that's all that matters, because at the end of the day, these people, may have done that to me, but I allowed them to hold me hostage for 20 years after it happened to me. And that was my choice. And realizing now, if I would have known better, I would have done better. My mission in life is to be an advocate for the people who haven't found their voice yet and to use my voice and share my story, because if I can just help one person heal a little sooner or reach out a little sooner or find the courage to just ask for a hug, because ultimately there was many days I just needed a hug.
Yeah. Do you allow individuals, like there might be someone who listens to this that's experiencing everything that you experience? Are you okay with putting out a contact information for them to meet because people might feel comfortable with you to talk?
Yeah, so you can reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram. It's Kehly Christine. So my first name is spelled Kehly, and then Christine Christine. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram.
I'm
And
gonna put your socials in the bottom anyways.
yeah, so that's me. You can find me, reach out, and I do a lot of the work with my clients, and that's what I do for a living. So yeah.
Talk about that. What do you do for a living?
So I am a kinesiologist. Like I have a degree in kinesiology and a minor in criminal justice. So my passion is to do sport-specific training with all athletes or people in life who have big, athletic goals, whether it's climbing a mountain or an Ironman or, I have had clients who just want to be able to get in and out of bed and fit on a plane and fit on one seat. So, I work with every walk of life. And majority now, it's people who are, very committed. And so typically you have to have pretty, extravagant goals, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And then I also do nutrition as well. So I teach people how to feel your body according to your lifestyle and your goals and your activity level and your lifestyle and that kind of stuff. And then I do energy healing. So I do psychic mediumship, Akashic records, astrology charts, Reiki. So I could do a combination of all kind of the different modalities. I've also sat with the monks in Nepal and lived at a monastery and learned about Tibetan Buddhism. And I traveled to Southeast Asia, India, Nepal, Philippines, Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, Australia, did a lot of soul searching for 2 years. So I have a lot of Eastern practices that I've integrated from my time traveling in Southeast Asia and Asia. So yeah, I would say just from, living a pretty traumatic childhood, developing my own, gifts from that, as well as learning from other people who have changed my life and saved my life ultimately.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can reach out. So it's kind of a body, mind, soul approach. I have an amazing dream team. So if I don't have the tools, I have somebody on my dream team that would be more than willing to support and help and guide and handhold, because we're all in this just walking together. And I don't believe anyone's ahead of anybody, and you're not behind, and it's not too late. And I don't care how many times you think you fucked up. It doesn't matter, because you're worthy and you're a miracle and you matter and you are loved and you are needed. And I believe only, the ones who really want to create change in this world get out alive. And the people who don't get out alive, unfortunately, in my opinion, are going to reincarnate back, and you're going to keep learning the hard way, or you could just do the work and go through the trauma and the pain and the darkness. And I promise you, on the other side, it won't feel as terrible.
Yeah, short-term pain, long-term gain. Like this is something people just are I think opening up to. I think with everything that happens in the world these days, it's becoming very, very difficult. And I just want to chuck this in there. It's meant to. It's absolutely meant to. Like the establishments that are making decisions for us around the world, they are miscalculating what they are doing because they think if they take everything away from us, they're going to control us. That's one avenue. But the second avenue, the one that's being overlooked, is us coming together when we remove the materialism, because that is absolutely going to happen. And there is an immense amount of unprocessed emotions that are floating around, energy, dense energy in the world right now. But we're going to move through that. And when we get through that, it's going to be beautiful because we're all going to be in that high vibrational frequency. And then any establishment, any organization, any religion or military that even thinks that it would be an idea that we could combat each other for being different than each other is going to dissolve. And that's how we take care of that. It's not something you have to put your time, energy, and effort into things externally from you trying to tear those things down. Don't worry about it. It's going to happen. Just put your attention, time, and energy on the inside. Clean the vessel, clean the body, clean the mind, clean the soul, and live in that high vibrational frequency by allowing yourself to make mistakes. Kehly, I appreciate you so freaking much for that conversation. Thank you, thank you. I will definitely put all of your information in the comments, and please, people, feel free to break free from the prison that you're holding yourself in and have conversations with individuals such as Kehly or myself. My social media information is below. This is what we do with our lives because great difficulties turned into wonderful, beautiful masterpieces. So much love, girl. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much, Justin. Take care.